My paws pound on the moss-covered forest floor. My breath comes in ragged pants. My lanky legs carry me in no clear direction with no decided destination. The wind is chilled and caresses my face as my four-footed furry body twists and weaves through the dense pine trees of northern Vermont. Vermont had been my home, as well as the home of 300 other werewolves that called the Stone Ridge Pack family. For all of my 18 years, I had called it home too. But today had changed. No longer was I welcome in Vermont territory. The venomous howls that followed me were a clear reminder. I pushed my body to run faster. My wolf ached from overexertion, but what do you expect when you are running for your life? I knew that the moment I stopped to rest, they would be on me taking my life. They had killed my pack. They murdered my baby sister in front of me. For a second, the image of her big blue eyes widened in fear, while glistening tears rolled down her rose-red cheeks invaded my head. So badly my wolf wanted to howl in sorrow. She wanted blood to be spilled, and I knew that with my training, I could hold my own. I had actually been in the process of becoming a warrior for my now deceased pack. But because of them, those dreams had been dashed and divided like a million stars in the night sky. It had been a regular evening. I had just arrived back from training and entered the pack house when Alpha Jason's voice echoed in my head through the pack link. A chain of communal thoughts among pack members. Rouge pack attack. Everyone under lockdown. Warriors to your stations. Immediately the shouts and screams of my fellow pack members echoed through the compound's hundreds of rooms. I stood frozen, as people ran all around me, looking for family members and friends. Their voices all blurred in my head as I stood in shock in the middle of it all. This was the first attack since the one my parents had been killed in. 4 years ago, a group of 5 Rouge wolves had pranced into our territory with the knowledge that they were outnumbered. It wasn't even a fair fight. They knew it was a suicide mission, but they wanted to see how many members of our pack they could take with them. Both my mother and my father had been pack warriors and were called to help defend the borders. They had died in combat. An honorable death in the werewolf community. But it hadn't felt honorable to me. They had left my sister and me all alone. My sister! Suddenly, I was awakened from my trance. Evelyn. Sweet, innocent Evie was all alone in our room. I immediately raced down the hall, pushing people out of my way as I ran to the stairwell. I cursed my decision to have an apartment on the top floor. There were 10 levels of living space, and Evie was on the top floor, probably scared out of her 7-year-old mind. I raced up the stairs, flight after flight, as adrenaline flooded my body. Within a minute, I had used my all-enhanced speed possible to reach the top floor. By now it had been emptied of any people, but I could faintly smell the lemon scent that was unique to Evie. Somewhere outside, I could hear the screams of my pack members, and every so often a small stab of pain went through my head, marking the death of each individual in my pack. Every time someone died, I could feel it, and the numbers kept increasing. This wasn't a random attack. It was planned. My heart stuttered as I thought of our odds. My pack was strong, but we hadn't been a true warrior pack for years. Unexpected battles wouldn't treat us kindly. I could only hope that someone would come and help in the fight, turning the tides in our favor. I started to panic as I neared our wood door and kicked it open with all my strength. It shattered into scraps of fire, kindling like it would in a James Bond movie. But this wasn't a stunt like they had on those Disney shows. Evie loved so much. This was life or death. "Evie!" I screamed into our small 2-bedroom apartment. I raced into the kitchen, and it was empty besides the abandoned bowl of cereal that was most likely Evie's. Sweat started to form on my brow as I hurriedly searched the apartment. "Evie?" "It's Ollie! We need to leave now!" I shouted as I entered her room and looked in the closet and under the bed. No sign of her yet. Her scent was so strong everywhere that it was impossible to pinpoint her exact location. I quickly raced across the hall and went into my room. I heard a noise coming from my closet, and I hurriedly opened the door. Clothes were hung everywhere, creating a hiding place of sorts. I heard a small sniffle. "Evie." "It's me. Please come out. Everything will be okay." I say sweetly with as much confidence as one can when they are aware of their pack slowly diminishing. I start to crouch down and move clothes aside, hoping to uncover the blonde-haired head of my little sister. "You promise?" the weak voice of Evie suddenly said. "Of course," I said sternly, trying to convince myself more than Evie. Soon after, the small frame of my only living family crawled out from behind one of my old prom dresses. Her blonde curls were wild and stuck up in odd angles. Big blue, watery eyes looked at me in fear. I hastily gathered her trembling body into my waiting arms, and I felt my wolf breath a sigh of relief. I walked out of the closet slowly so I didn't startle Evie. I could feel her wet tears penetrating my thin cotton shirt. "Shush. It will all be okay. I will protect you, but we need to get out of the house first. I need you to calm down and breath." I say steadily, controlling my voice and giving away no ounce of my true fear. The ragged breaths of sobbing Evie slowly die down as I move her into a piggyback position so I can run with her if needed. Right now, my main concern is getting out of the pack house as soon as possible. "Allie?" I'm scared," she whispers in a small voice that makes me want to cry outside in heartbreak. No one should ever have to fear for their lives, as she has. No little girl should be worried about living until the next day. No child should hide in fear. I refused to give in to the voice in my head that screamed for me to cry and scream. I had to be strong for Evie. She hadn't even lived yet. It will all be okay. Alpha Jason will protect us. I told her as I carry her out of our apartment and into the abandoned hallway. I look in either direction to make sure we are in the clear. I take a deep breath and see if I can smell any vulgar stenches that always surround a rogue wolf. After checking and double-checking, I proclaimed the pack house empty, and I began the trek to the back door of the house. Every so often I had to remind Evie to keep the sniffling to a minimum in case a rouge walked near the house and heard us. After making it to the bottom level, we moved into the commons where couches and TVs could be found. All around TVs broadcast the show that had been left playing at the time of Alpha Jason's announcement. One of my favorite shows, Modern Family, was on one screen. Cameron and Claire were arguing again. They were having a disagreement about renovation plans for a house they were redoing. I almost laughed at how ironic it is that while Evie and I run for our lives, they act like renovation disagreements are the end of the world. I wish that was my only problem right now. I immediately forgot about the TV show as soon as the heinous stench of blood hit my nose. I almost gagged at the thought of what we would find outside as I made it to the back sliding doors. I tried to open them as quietly as possible and looked at the clearing behind the compound. The spring green grass was painted in a coat of red paint, with broken and bruised bodies scattered across the lawn. I recognized the faces of classmates and a few elders. Their bodies were covered in gashes and tooth marks. Some of their limbs were detached and laying a few feet away. Flesh still hung off their exposed bones. Their fresh blood covered their pale skin, while their glazed eyes stared up into the clouded sky. It was a graveyard. Every so often, I came across a dead rouge wolf, but my pack members outnumbered their dead 5-1. It was a hideous sight that made me want to throw up. So many people I knew and loved were gone. Following the same path as my parents. Suddenly, the sobs of Evie reminded me that she was seeing the same scene through her 7-year-old eyes. Don't look. Evie. Don't look. I told her in a broken voice. This was bad. This was worse than I ever could have imagined. I wove my way through the bloodbath until I reached the start of the forest that was silent of any bird songs. It was as if they knew what had taken place. I started to run with Evie, and for a second I let myself shed a tear for all of my pack who had died. A momentary rush of pain went through my body as I felt an unexplainable emptiness set in. Alpha Jason was dead. I didn't need any proof or witness. It was just the truth. I whimpered as I stumbled a step forward, before catching myself. Even Evie sobbed this time, and her head burrowed into my shoulder. We were alone now, without an alpha. We were the Rouges now. I forced myself to run faster, but with Evie's extra weight, it was impossible to make a good time. We had been running for not only 10 minutes, before the howl of a wolf pierced the silence. I vaguely heard Evie sob in fear as the howls got closer and closer. They were hunting, and we were the prey. Evie started to shake as I heard them approaching. I tried to run faster, but my body was already tired and had used up all its adrenaline. Out of the corner of my eye, I could make out the racing form of a black wolf snarling. Before I could change our course, a body slammed into mine from the side. I screamed as I toppled over with Evie in tow. I hit the ground with a thud, and I hissed in pain as I slowly got up and located Evie a few feet away, clutching her arm in pain. A vicious growl left the black wolf as it stalked closer to us. I immediately got at a defensive stance in front of my sister's small body. My wolf snarled in anger at the approaching wolf, but before we could attack another wolf, this one gray ran into my line of sight and charged toward Evie. Her scream of terror pierced through the forest as I attempted to pull off the gray wolf that was mauling her fragile form. "Stop, you son of a bitch!" I screamed as I tried to tackle the wolf that was on my baby sister, but it didn't budge. I knew that time was running out for Evie unless I shifted into my wolf. I could feel my wolf howl in agreement as my body started to shake and bones began to snap into place. Before I was fully shifted, the black wolf from earlier ran at me and snapped his jaw on my shoulder. A half-scream, half-growl ripped through my throat as I completed my change and flung the black wolf off of my body. I snarled and attacked it as he was recovering from the fall. I latched my razor-sharp teeth into his throat, and he struggled as the life died from his body. I continued to yank on his neck until his body was as limp as a rag. Then I flung him off to the side and snarled once more for good measure. I felt satisfied at the death. I was happy that he had died, but I immediately felt sick at my prior thoughts. It was not supposed to be easy to kill. My wolf was getting to my head. I ripped my eyes away from the now dead Rouge, to focus on the gray wolf that had my sister. As soon as I turned my head, the smell of blood filled my nose, and the pleas of help echoed in my ears. Evie. I saw her mangled body laying on the forest floor, as the gray wolf stood over her bloodied body with a sneer on his wolf face. He had taken his sweet time with my sister, while I had been busy killing the black wolf. I should have immediately gone to help Evie, but my wolf had taken over. Now, as the life drained from her big blue eyes, and weak whimpers left her pink lips, I could only watch as she took her final breath. I growled in rage as her gaze became cloudy and distant. An indescribable emptiness filled my body to the brim. I wanted death. I wanted blood. I wanted revenge. I had nothing left to lose as I pounced on the distracted wolf and tore open his throat. I snarled and clawed at his fur until the blood had drained from his body. Serves him right. I wanted so badly curl up beside my sister's body and mourn her properly, but the distant howls of approaching wolves made me change my mind. They wanted me dead. I would never get out alive, but I could still make it a hell of a lot harder to kill me. I would not go easily. They took away Evie. She was so young. She was innocent. She would never experience her first kiss. She would never know what it felt like to run through the forest as a wolf. She would never go out to the mall with her friends and gossip about boys. She would never have a family and grow old. They had taken that all away from her. I would avenge her. So now, as I ran in an unclear direction, I focused on creating as much distance as I could. Hopefully, I could make it out of the territory before they caught up, but if I didn't, I wouldn't go easily. I would fight until my last breath. I would do it for Mama, Daddy, and Evie. I would fight for them. Their memories were all I had left. I was a killer. I was a fighter. But most importantly, I was a survivor. 562. That is how many days since they captured me. I never made it to the border. I had become too exhausted from overexertion and passed out. When I had finally woken up, I was here. Here. Being the holding cells that I recognized as my packs. Everywhere, there were little clues that I have studied much too closely. A claw mark from a Rouge we had captured a few years back. The stray pine needles that had snuck their way into the cellar. And a rusted key, with my pack's symbol of a paw print on it, that lay discarded on the stone floor outside of my cell. So many small reminders of my pack's death. Reminders of the helpless children, the dedicated warriors, hopeful teenagers and weak elders that gave up their life. For the first couple of weeks, I was here. They came down and fed me table scraps while I had been chained to the cold stone wall. Silver chains cut sores into my wrists and made it painful to even move my arms. My body had slowly gained back some of its strength, and I was left alone to wonder why I was still alive. No Rouge talked to me. They never answered my pleas. I just sat in the silence and was forced to relive that night, over and over. I was as if a movie was playing in my head. The colors and sounds were just as real as they had been then. I replayed Evie's death over and over again. I wondered what I could have done differently. I cursed myself for my mistakes. I cried silent tears as I blamed myself for her death. I started to blame myself for everything, and no one could stop me. For that first couple of weeks, I fell so deep into a pool of self-hatred that I almost drowned. I wanted to die. I wanted to join Evie and Mom and Dad. I had nothing left to live for. My wolf had shut me out. My pack was dead. I was weak from not eating even the scraps they brought me. I refused to live. So when the Alpha of the Rouges finally found time to pay my despicable self a visit, I was ready to welcome death with open arms. I had no fight left. Alpha Ren, as he called himself, was a stout man with dark brown hair that was buzzed close to his scalp. A permanent frown has etched onto his hard face. His eyes were pits of never-ending darkness. His entire appearance made what he had done very believable. I marked his face in my mind. I told myself to pay attention. I was looking at a mass murderer. I was looking at my enemy. I remember clearly the moment he first spoke to me, as I sat huddled in the corner of my freezing cell. I remember how he cut his silver knives into my flesh and carved me like a slab of bloodied meat right after. He had stood right behind the bars that held me inside. He had looked at me and smiled. Yes. He had the nerve to smile at me. His grimy teeth looked yellow in the dim light of the cellar hall. He stood and looked at me, assessing my features as he continued to smile. What do you want?" I said in a scratchy voice. I had barely talked, after I realized that the guards here never spoke. It was pointless to waste that energy when I seemed to never have any these days. The man chuckled and bellowed a repulsive laugh as he slapped his knee in genuine humor. After pulling himself together, he cocked his head as he looked at me seriously again. My... Looks like you still have some life left in you. My dear, don't worry, it won't last long. You will not be killed yet, but by the end, you will be begging on your knees for death. He said cruelly, and he smirked at me. Anger had stirred inside my empty gut, and I glared at him. I wouldn't be so sure. I would gladly skip to death. It's a win-win. You don't have to waste your time on me, and I get to join my sister, who... By the way, you killed. You killed her! I spat out, and my body started to shake in pure and utter rage. His face grew red at my outburst, and he clenched the bars of my cell in his two meaty hands. A growl ripped through his throat. You will address me as Alpha or Alpha Ren, you piece of shit mutt. He yelled at me. And if you ever disrespect me again, I'll chain your feet up too. I could physically feel the waves of anger that he emitted. Suddenly he turned and shouted down the hall. Bring me the cart. I was bewildered. Cart? What cart? My eyebrows furrowed in confusion as a young male wolf around my age walked down the hall, pushing a metal cart with his head down. I craned my head as I tried to catch a glimpse of what was on it. As soon as I did, I paled. A whimper escaped my mouth as I took in the dreadful sight before me. Small surgical knives, ranging from the size of my pinky to the size of my foot. Each blade was razor-sharp and shinny. A few vials of liquids were also there, and I had no doubt that at least one was the deadly wolfsbane. To finish off the assembly was a whip that looked menacing. I started to shake, and Alpha Ren looked over and gave me a wide smile. I shrank back at the cold venom that his one look contained. "Don't worry, my sweet girl. I won't kill you yet," he said as the boy who had brought the cart quickly walked away. I think I might have caught a small look of regret on his face, but no one would have known. No one would stop this psychotic monster. Alpha Ren then took out a key from his worn jean pocket and unlocked my rusty cell door. I tried to become one with the cold stone wall behind me, but it was no use, as he stalked into my cell and slammed the door shut, which resulted in a loud bang that echoed all around me. Ren went to work stationing the cart against the wall and assessing the tools before him. He started to sort through them as if he were shopping for clothes at a mall, until he found the one he wanted. It was a small silver knife that was just bigger than my pinky. Perfect one to start with, don't you think? He started to walk towards me, until suddenly he froze. "Oh, my excuse, my poor manners. What is your name, mutt?" I look at him angrily. My heart beat loudly in my chest, as my eyes flitted between the knife and his face. Both made me want to throw up. Then I realized something. Oh. Goddess. I was brilliant. I had no clue when or if I would make it out of here alive, but as I looked at him at that moment, I knew one thing for sure. Alpha Ren would get what he deserved, even if I had to drag him to hell myself. For once, I had something to live for in the many months I had been contained here. I would not let him put out my fire. I would not break my promise to my family. I looked at Ren with all the hate I could muster and snarled one word. One name. Onalee. That was the first of many times. The first of many hours of pain, tears, and screams. I endured months on months of torture, with only May hate for Ren giving me the motivation to pick my broken and bruised, cut and carved body off of the chilled stone floor. The floor of my cell was not only my home for this past year and a half, but also my bed, torture table, and safety. It was the one constant in my poor excuse for a life. Over these past many months, Ren had found pleasure in cutting me open, whipping and touching me in unfathomable ways. He would come to my cell, angry as hell, and punish me for it. I can honestly say that the man has some major problems. One clearly being he is a psychotic madman. But honestly, he is probably on a 247 rampage. Never have witnessed him, not angry. I can't comprehend why wolves even allow him to rule over them. He had none of the leadership and stability that a respected alpha requires. The boy that had first brought in Ren's tools of torture has actually been around quite frequently. He brings me my food, or more like leftovers, and sometimes, if Ren was really bad, he will help me clean my wounds. However, he refuses to talk to me. Even when I pester him with questions, he is mute. I just wish to know his name. The only person I know here is Alpha Ren, and that is only because he demands I address him as such. Almost every day, Ren pays me a visit, whether it's just to taunt me about what he will do to me tomorrow, or to inject me with wolfsbane before he tortured me later. Goddess, it hurts. Everything hurts with exhaustion and soreness, but every time I find myself wandering to the easy path, the path of death, I remind myself of my family. I remind myself that the only thing I have left is my promise to them. It is a promise I will keep. Now, As I lay silently on the hard floor, I try and ignore the fresh blood that trickles down my wrists that are cuffed in silver shackles. If it was anything other than silver, I would be okay, but open wound exposure to silver causes werewolves extreme pain and weakens us. Lucky for me, Ren's favorite metal was silver. Not only did silver give us physical pain, but it also made scars if it was exposed to our raw flesh. I knew without looking that my body was covered in thin white scars on my stomach and thick lash marks on my back. They were layered. They were interchangeable. My body was a canvas with pictures carved into my skin. Pictures that, when depicted, were the face of anguish. I was a painting titled Pain and Suffering. I was a collage of torture and tears. Yet somehow I still had life left in me. Suddenly loud footsteps echoed through the cellar, and I cringed as I recognized the heavy footfalls. Alpha Ren. As he came into view, I heard him muttering incoherent words, with a few I could barely make out. I just tried to tune it out and reminisce in my last moments of peace. Stupid rouges. Attack. Alpha, he said angrily under his breath. That caught my attention, and I lifted my eyes off of the floor as Ren stopped at my door and yanked out the polished key that unlocked it. I studied his features and noticed the dark eye bags and unshaven jaw. Ren looked the most unkempt I'd ever seen him in all of my time here. He always had this cool facade and snarky comments. Now he looked sleep-deprived and haggard. "Get up, you little bitch," Ren yells, and I have to do a double take to register if he is talking to me. I said, "Get up, you whore." I start to shiver as I attempt to stand up on my trembling, weak limbs. I can't recall the last time I used my leg muscles, and it is evident that my once-toned body was now a puddle of bones. My arms clutch onto the walls for support as I hold onto it like a lifeline. Stabbing pain shoots through my wrists as I lift the heavy silver chains off the floor. The weight on my raw forearms causes my wounds to reopen, and fresh blood trails down my arms. I try and stop the sob that is growing in my throat, but it is no use. As soon as Alpha Ren hears it, he swings open the door, and I notice the whip he carries in his hands. I see a drip of a liquid slip off of it, and I know immediately it is coated in wolfsbane. Not again. I whisper in my head. Good girl. Now take off your shirt, he orders in a stony voice. I glance down at my worn and tattered clothes that I had woken up in when I was first captured. An oversized t-shirt and old gym shorts that hung low on my thin waist. My body had been so malnourished from my time here, I could have been a scrawny teenager in middle school. I barely looked at the age of almost 20. I slowly peel off my shirt, which is nothing new for me. Ren always insists on having me remove my shirt before being whipped or cut to make sure I don't ruin my clothes. I think some twisted part of him enjoys having half of my body exposed for him to touch and slice. More than once he has touched my breasts and trailed kisses down my flesh. It always leaves me sickened. Never have I let someone touch me like that. I would never allow anyone but my wolf's mate to touch me in those ways, and I certainly would never let a repulsive man like Ren do those things to me. However, I was in no position to stop him. I was completely and utterly at his disposal. Once I am unclothed, Ren stalks forward, and I cringe backward. My face must show my repulsion, and for some reason that angers him. How dare you disrespect me? You are lucky I let you live. You little slut. I should have killed you like I had your sister killed. He snarls in my face as I cower. At his words, I start to see red. Deep within my mind, I feel my absent wolf start to stir. My heart aches at the loss of Evie, but also at the reappearance of my wolf. I have missed her fire and spirit. Suddenly, I have a burst of courage. You think I should be thanking you. You have made my life a living hell. You have beaten and sliced me till I couldn't even remain awake. You have given me next to no food or water, and you have killed my sister. I will never offer you even an ounce of thanks. I growl, and I reach out to punch him, but he easily deflects it and shoves me to the floor. I fall, and my body hits the ground in a pile of flesh and bones. I brace my hands on the floor as I compose myself. You have made a big mistake, Missy, he screams out. I have never seen him this angry. This, enraged. Before I can lift my head up to look him in the eyes, a searing pain erupts across my back. I arch my body in pain, but I bite my tongue, refusing to give Ren the satisfaction of hearing my screams. He raises the whip again, and I hear the slap of it hitting my raw back with the same effect as the one before. You are a useless slut, he screams and brings the whip down on my back again. I grit my teeth and bite my cheek, drawing blood which leaves an iron taste on my tongue. You are just as weak as the rest of your goddamn disgrace of a pack, he continues to rant. By now, I am seeing stars, and my arms start to shake from holding my body off of the floor. I refuse to make any noise, even though I want to. I want to scream so effing badly. I want everyone to hear the pain this man has brought upon me. Ren swings his arm down again, causing my breath to catch and my hands to turn ghostly white. My knuckles are dry and split open as I splay my hands across the floor. My vision quakes, and I spit blood onto the floor. It lands like a red firework erupting across the night sky on the 4th of July. My wolf wants to stand up for ourselves because of the harm Ren is putting us through. I try and calm her down. I can't afford to waste my energy on trying to harm a physically stronger alpha. I am stronger than you know. I grit out and close my eyes to push away the tears that have formed. I will not cry. That earns me another 2 lashes. By now, I have lost count of how many times he has whipped me. All I know is that survival is my only option. It is my only purpose. This is by far the worst of Ren's wrath. Usually, he stops by now and lets me suffer in silence. Usually, he laughs at my weakened state and just watches me for amusement. Today is not the case. Ren is not only angry, but he is also going ballistic. He screams incoherent things into my ringing ears as I feel another hit to my back. As my vision starts to tunnel off, I try to fight with my mind and prevent it from shutting down. I gasp when I feel a kick to my rib cage, and I fall to the ground on my stomach with a loud thud. My body trembles as I start to give in to the exhaustion and pain. My eyes close, and just as I'm about to drift into a state of sleep, I hear one thing: the blare of the pack warning alarm. We are under attack. I woke up to the feeling of hands trying to lift me off of the damp floor. I groan in pain as my body regains consciousness. Everything burns, from my back to my calves. I just want to fall back into my peaceful abyss where nothing but my dreams exist. Then I remember. I remember Ren. I remember the lashes infused with wolfsbane that left me trembling and weak. Most importantly, I remember the blaring warning alarm that had broken through Ren's raging voice. An alarm like that only went off when a pack was in immediate danger. Alpha Jason hadn't even had time to sound the alarm before we had been attacked. Maybe if we were given more time, Evie and I would be alive and safe. I slowly open my eyes that have swelled shut and find myself being poked and prodded by none other than the mute boy. He sees that I am now conscious and slowly retreats, as if I am a fragile creature. I try to sit up as I keep my eyes trained on his brown ones. I never have liked it when people are near me without my knowledge. It makes my wolf antsy and paranoid. I study the boy's dark blonde hair and pale skin. His eyes are sunken in, and I have no doubt he has been mistreated in ways no different than I. He regards me in a similar manner, but his eyes speak more than words could ever express. He has felt his fair share of pain, and he understands what I am going through. The boy towers above me as I sit curled up on the floor. The door behind him is slightly ajar, and my breath becomes frozen in my chest as I catch sight of it. I glance around and find no sign of Ren lurking in any dark corners. This is too good to be true. Whenever I'm being helped by the boy, Ren is always supervising our encounter. I look at him with widened eyes. Does he want to get us both killed? He is willing to risk his life for me, but he won't even tell me his name. I don't know what you think you're doing, but this is going to get you and I both in trouble. Alpha Ren will surely kill me next time he gets the chance, and you won't get it much better. I whisper harshly. I'm not worth risking to help. I'm not an innocent being of the moon goddess. I've killed, and I've done my fair share of the devil's deeds. I want him to leave so my escape won't be put upon his shoulders. He just stares indifferently at me. I wait for him to explain, but when he doesn't, I huff out a breath in annoyance. I start to struggle to my feet. My body aches and protests. I still can't find the strength to lift myself up off of my ass. I catch sight of movement in front of my face, and I immediately shrink back, expecting a blow to my body to follow. I close my eyes in preparation, but the pain never comes. Slowly, I crack open one eye and find I scarred. Pale hand stretched out in front of me. It's an offering of peace. It's a test of faith. Most importantly, it is the promise of help. I reach my weak hand up and grab his slightly bigger one, and grip it tightly as he pulls my body up into my feet. After I'm up, I immediately try and let go of his hand, to avoid any awkwardness. But I underestimated how weak I was, and I wobble around using his hand as a crutch to lean on. He doesn't seem to mind, so I continue to test and stretch my legs until I feel comfortable to walk on my own. "Why are you helping me?" I ask after a few moments. I look up at his face and see him avert his eyes. His thin lips open and close like a fish, gasping for water, but no sound comes out. He slowly shakes his head. "Okay, well. What's your name?" I must know the name of my knight in shining armor, right? I say, trying to lighten the mood with a joke, and it feels so good. Any words I have uttered in these past months have been in anger and rage. Joking around has been the last thing on my mind. Evie used to call me the Queen of Sarcasm, which is probably one of her more accurate statements. I haven't talked like this since that night, and I can wholeheartedly say that I miss those days when I could just be a teenage girl. Evie's death and Ren's torture has forced me to grow up faster than I would have. What I would do to be young again. I notice a small smile form on his face before a crash in the distance interrupts our conversation. Immediately, he grabs my hand and starts to tow me out of the cell and into the hallway. My feet try their best to keep you and my wolf howls at the feeling of running, even if we aren't in our wolf form. I try to keep track of where we are going, but my mind is racing a mile a minute trying to comprehend one thing. We are escaping. I am pulled down hall after hall, cell after cell, and through doorway after doorway. We maneuver through the pack-holding cells without encountering any other werewolves. This is highly strange, because the pack prison is usually one of the most heavily guarded buildings in a pack's territory. Mute Boy and I race up a narrow stairwell before pushing open a metal door that reveals the fresh outdoors. I glance around in wonder as I take in my first breaths of fresh air since the night of the attack. I watch the trees sway in the cool air, like dancers rocking their hips. I take in the dew-covered grass that glistens in the morning sun like a million crystals on a chandelier. I listen to the intricate symphony of bird songs and crickets, all humming to the same beat. I never realized how much I missed the forest before now. When I had been locked up, I always refused to think of the things I didn't have. It only made me weaker in the mind. But now I realize how much I had been deprived of. A tug on my hand, which I remember the Mute Boy still holds, breaks my beautiful reunion with nature. I stop myself from shooting a glare in his direction, reminding myself that he is helping me escape. Instead, I quickly turn to look at him, and that's when I hear it. I hadn't picked up on the nose before, because I wasn't using my wolf's enhanced hearing. But now it was apparent. In the distance, sounds of snarling wolves and the shouts of pain could be heard. Ren's pack was under attack. I knew the alarm had gone off, and I had assumed that Ren had gone to deal with a few stray wolves crossing into his territory. Never in a million years would I have imagined a full-scale battle raging less than 10 miles away. In the end, it made sense, but I had been too distracted to connect the dots until now. When the lack of guards in the building had first crossed my mind, I had assumed it was a blessing from the moon goddess. Now I knew the guards had been called into battle, leaving me unattended. I sent a silent prayer to the moon, goddess asking for Ren to suffer, and then who the hell cares what my fate is? As long as he feels just a fraction of the pain he put me through, a meteor could fall through space and crash right on top of me, and as long as Ren suffered as well, I would accept my death. Okay. So we just run until we reach Rouge territory? I ask sarcastically as I glance over at Mute Boy. I expect him to nod his head and lead me onward through the forest away from the battle. Instead, he shakes his head and just points at me. Me? I say, uncertainty trying to decode his message. Me what? He looks at me with serious brown eyes and points at my chest, and then the forest. I look to where he points, and when I find nothing, I start to get frustrated. We are wasting time. Now is the time to run, and he is trying to play read my mind. Okay. Mister, we need to leave now. Let's go, I say, and I start to jog into the forest on weak legs, but when I don't hear him follow, I whip my head around. He stands just at the edge of the clearing by the pack prison, looking at me with a solemn expression. I beckon him forward, but he continues to stand in his same spot. I cock my head and study him. He makes no move to follow. "You aren't coming, are you?" I say with disappointment. My heart hurts for this poor boy, who has sacrificed everything to help me escape, and is still unwilling to abandon the pack that has abused him so much already. I wish I could force him to run with me, but it's no use. Once a wolf sets their mind on something, it's nearly impossible to convince them otherwise. I slowly back away into the trees as I watch him watch me. "What is your name?" "Please." "Just what should I call you? I can't remember you as Mute Boy now, can I?" I say sweetly and smile at him. This boy will probably be killed by Ren sooner or later, and he deserves a proper thanks even if he doesn't want it. He looks at me, and then points to the sky with a shaky hand. I look up at the crisp blue sky, and then back at him. Obviously, it has something to do with the sky. I shoot him a questioning look, and he looks down ashamed. I try and rack my head, but a blue sky can only mean. Then it clicks. "Is your name Blue?" I say quietly. I watch as he lifts his head and shoots me a wide grin, and suddenly it hits me how young he is. I had originally thought him to be around my age, but he couldn't be more than 16 years old. Blue looks at me and waves me towards the forest, telling me in a silent way that I need to leave. Telling me that it's time for me to say goodbye. "Goodbye." "Blue. I will come back and get you one day. Save you from this hellhole? Got that? And give Ren pain for me, will ya?" I say as tears form in my green eyes. I hear an ear-splitting howl and take it as my cue to leave. With one last glance at Blue, I take a running leap and give in to my wolf's desire to shift. The old clothes I had worn for the past year and a half become shredded slips of cloth that float down in the air to the forest floor. It's my final hurrah, as I slip into a rhythm of pounding paws and racing heartbeats. I test my muscles as I wave a trail through the forest, heading to the east to Maine. I don't personally know the pack that resides there, but nothing can be as bad as Ren's pack or Rouge's. I let my wolf lead me away from my personal hell. I let her have complete control as I welcome her back with arms wide open. She makes my weak body work harder than it has in a while. She runs faster as if motivated by something, but what that has yet to be revealed. After a good 2 hours of straight running, I feel a change of air pressure for a fleeting moment, and then it returns to normal. I thank the moon goddess as I recognize the feeling of entering another alpha's territory. I coax my wolf into giving me back control, but as soon as I do, I feel weak and tired. I let my wolf push me too hard when my body was not yet back to full strength. I felt lightheaded as I fell to the moss-covered ground and whimpered in exhaustion. I let my body relax as sleep overtakes me. For once in many weeks I sleep, knowing I was safe from Ren and his torment. I allowed drowsiness to carry me into its deep darkness. Peaceful bliss. The first thing I notice when I regain consciousness is that I am floating. Well, if you want to get technical, I'm being carried. By whom I do not know. But I hope it is not a member of Ren's pack that illegally crosses the main pack border to retrieve me. I would sooner die than return. I slowly squint open my puffy eyelids to look around. At first glance, I see a bulky man with a chiseled jaw covered in stubble who is holding my fragile body bridal style. He is looking straight forward as we walk through the woods. so I don't think he has seen that I'm awake. He is a werewolf, my wolf informs me in an irritated voice. Of course. He is. I need to pull myself together. Haul ass out of the country to some tiny island in the Caribbean where I can live the rest of my pathetic life in peace. Of course. That would all happen after I regain my strength and give Ren a peace of mind. I let my body become limp in the man's arms as I roll out of his grasp. That's when I realize that I'm naked, except for an oversized black t-shirt that I can only assume belongs to the middle-aged man in front of me. I land on the ground with a thump, and I quickly spring to my feet to avoid an oncoming attack. This man could be my greatest nightmare, and I won't allow my guard to go down, even though I'm still quite tired. Easy. Easy, the man says with a startled voice. My wolf takes over, and a snarl escapes my mouth. To any normal person, I probably sound like a rabid animal. Thankfully, it seems that this man is aware of my werewolf status. I'm not going to hurt you, but if you run, others will hunt you down, he says calmly, while holding his hands up in a peace offering. I study him cautiously. He has dark black hair that is shaggy with some stray curls here and there. His bright blue eyes express truth in his words. I know that I can't trust him completely, but if I can get him to let me go on my way in peace, that would be ideal. My name is Onalee, I say slowly as I try to calm my agitated wolf. All she wants me to do is run, until I reach the end of the world. Sadly, I know running won't get me anywhere in this situation. My rescuer looks me over and grimaces at my state of bruises and scars. I try to hide them, but it's no use. They are everywhere. Where did you come from, Onalee? If I may ask, that is, he says curiously. I look down, deciding on whether or not I should tell him the truth or lie. I decide on neither. I was being held by an anonymous pack, and I escaped. I had to get away, so I ran across the nearest border, which just so happens to be your pack. You belong to the Bloodwater main pack, right? I reply confidently. Yes. I am actually the beta. My name is Jonathan. He informs me with a hint of pride. However, am in a deep hole of shit. Getting the beta of a pack to let me roam free would be much harder than another ordinary wolf. At least if it was a lower-ranking wolf, I could try and convince them to let me go out of the goodness in their heart. After all, it was illegal for any wolf to step foot on another alpha's territory without a direct invitation. A beta would feel more loyal to their alpha and would not let me go no matter what, because it was their duty to serve the alpha. They couldn't disappoint. But it was worth a try. I really don't want to inconvenience your pack and everything. So here's the deal. You let me go, and I won't utter a word of our encounter. Plus, I'm just passing through until I make it to the Rouge territory. You won't ever see me again. I plead with him. Jonathan's expression immediately turns stony, and a frown pulls at his lips. You know I can't do that. My alpha has already sensed your presence, and has ordered me to retrieve you for further questioning. Do not try and guilt me into letting you go, and certainly don't say things like that around the alpha. He will not tolerate speaking in such a manner. The man says icily as he grabs my arm and roughly yanks me in the direction of his pack's headquarters. So much for the nice guy act. I stumble forward to keep up as I'm towed behind Jonathan. I try to yank my arm out of his grasp, but his grip does not loosen. Time for Plan B. I dig the heels of my feet into the forest floor, bringing our parade to a stop. As soon as Jonathan has stopped moving, I lurch forward and twist his arms behind his back, while kneeing him where the sun never shines. "Shit!" he exclaims as a list of profanities leave his mouth, but instead of doubling down in pain, he whips around, tackles me to the forest floor. "Get off of me, you brute!" I scream in frustration. "Not until you promise to come with me and behave," he says, as his voice gets low and dangerous. His wolf must be near the surface, ready to punish me if I continue to disrespect him and his rank as the beta. "I will do no such thing," I yell back as I squirm underneath his atrocious amount of weight. He lays over me, his stomach pressing against my raw back. Shooting pain erupts over my back, where the lash marks are still healing. They should be gone in the next couple of days, but right now they are open wounds, oozing blood. I scream as the pain intensified, and I feel Jonathan quickly remove his weight and pick me up before sprinting off into the forest. I wither in agony as we fly through the forest. Soon, I feel like I'm no longer in my body as everything becomes numb. I feel the fire still erupting across my back, but I don't register the pain. I whimper in fear instead. My wolf hates the fact that we are being taken away once again. "Hold on, Onalee. I know you don't want to see the Alpha, but he can get you help. You need it," he says, slightly out of breath. He is right in assuming I want nothing to do with their Alpha. I have no idea what he will do to me, and I have no desire to find out. After everything Ren has put me through, the last thing I need is dealing with another egotistical male, with the idea that everyone and everything is beneath them. All around us, the leafy trees stretch up to greet the sky. The sun's rays penetrate their foliage and scatter like seeds along the forest floor. I try and tune out the nonsense that Jonathan continues to spout, as he every so often glances down at me with a worried expression. He should not care about my well-being. I'm not even a member of his pack, and I think he feels the same way based on the confusion that rests in his eyes. A doze in and out of a trance-like state, and the next thing I register, I'm laying on a white sheet cover's bed with a load of monitors beeping at me. I slowly sit up and notice the pain in my back has disappeared. Most likely the result of a couple of bottles of opioids. Less intense painkillers would pass through my system quickly because of my werewolf genes. I am wearing a thin hospital gown, and as I check myself for any open wounds, I notice that my skin has been scrubbed free of any dirt. I run my hands through my blonde curls and find them silky smooth and scented vanilla. The room I'm in is small with peach cream walls and one single window across from a door. Behind the door, I hear footsteps walking around. Multiple people travel down the hall that my door must lead to. Thankfully, no one has come in to check on me yet. After testing my body for any apparent weaknesses, I deem myself runaway ready. I lift my body out of the cot and let my feet slide to the cool tile floor. I have no doubt that I'm in the pack hospital, so the question is, how high up is my room, and will I be able to jump from my window? I pad my way over to the semi-large window. As I look out, I make note of the setting sun, which could be in my favor for my escape. But then I look down at the ground and notice that my room has to be more than 6 stories up. No way am I going to risk my life jumping when I just regained my health. I turn away from the window and focus on the hall which, at the moment, is empty. My wolf urges me forward, anxious to leave the confinement of the room. Slowly, I ease open the door and peek into the wide hallway. Dozens of doors with names on them, along with charts and medical records hanging from clips on the wall nearby. No one is in sight, so I make a run for it. I race down the hall to my right, hoping I can find an emergency exit. I envision sprinting out into the evening and running until my 4 legs ached. For some reason, my wolf was very antsy and wanted out. Normally, I could get her under control. Of course. It didn't help that a loud, "Rich," manly voice was booming through the hall that I crept through. My wolf yipped in excitement, but I shut her out and started to sprint down to the end of the hall. Where is this Rouge? And why haven't I questioned her earlier? You know we can't have Rouges running around, Jonathan. My authoritative voice ordered from nearby. Out of my line of sight. At his words, shivers raced down my back. What the hell? I heard footsteps thunder down the hall, and I started to panic as I reached the door and found it locked. I pushed all my weight against it and screamed in frustration. "Open, you piece of shit door!" I yelled as I kicked at it. I quickly shot a glance behind me and saw Jonathan round a corner at the other end of the hall. I turned my focus back to the door and punched the lock as hard as I possibly could, resulting in shooting pain through my hand. My knuckles were now busted open with blood drizzling out. However, it was worth it when I heard the lock break and the handle became functional. I tugged it open and raced down a stone stairwell. "Hey, what do you think you are doing?" Jonathan's shout called after me, but I ignored it. "If that is the blasted Rouge you let live, I will kill her right here and now," a voice responded. Once again, it sent my wolf into an excited frenzy. Ugh. I continued to take the stairs, 2 at a time, until I reached the end of the stairwell. Above me, Jonathan and his partner stomped down the stairs I had just gone down moments before. I rushed to open the door that had to lead outside, but it had no handles and must only be able to open from the outside. Just my luck. An angry growl rips through the air behind me. I ran into the door for good measure, but it didn't seem to make any difference. My only option is to face Jonathan and his mysterious friend. I close my eyes and force myself to remain strong. No matter what they throw at me, I can take it. I have before. I hear them approach, and I continue to look at the floor, refusing to admit defeat. I will not give them the satisfaction. I force my face clear of all emotions except confidence. I study the floor as the 2 men stop to stand in front of me. Sparks erupt across my body for some strange reason, but I ignore them. I can't afford to show any weakness. They need to know that I am not a weak Rouge that they can push around and abuse. I will not tolerate being mistreated again. I would sooner die. Well, look what we have here. The little Rouge that trespassed onto my land has the guts to run from me. A voice growls, causing me to shake at the anger rolling into the room. Bow and show me some respect, you pitiful being. I refuse to obey his order, and instead, I pick my head up and challenge the man who has the guts to order me around. How dare he say those things about me? He doesn't even know me. Prick. I fix my face into a glare as I meet his eyes, and that's when my world starts to fall apart. My eyes find dark, stormy blue ones as my breath catches in my chest. My heart beats a mile a minute. Thump. 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 I can feel each thud in my head, echoing around my brain. My wolf howls in joy as I behold the 6'4" male specimen in all of his glory, standing less than 5 feet away from me. His pitch-black locks of hair are cut close on the sides and left longer on the top, allowing a stray curl to dip onto his forehead. His skin is golden from hours under the sun. He towers over me in an appealing way. Oh gosh. Oh gosh. He looks me in the eyes, and then it all clicks. It's like suddenly my body and mind have been completed. The last piece of a puzzle has been put into place. I feel alive. A sudden, unexplainable clarity comes over me in record time. This man, this male werewolf, in front of me, is my mate. My wolf starts yipping in excitement, but I shut her up. Not only is this my mate, but he is also the man who called me a filthy rouge and threatened to kill me. No way will I throw that to the side, just because he is my mate. Respect can't be given if it is not first earned.
I screw my face back into a scowl and face my new mate head-on.
I school my face back into a scowl and face my new mate head-on. I notice Jonathan standing slightly behind him, watching our encounter nervously. I don't blame him. The masculine energy that radiates around us is much too smothering. Do not speak to me like that. I growl angrily, and my wolf whimpers at my words to our mate. Screw her. This only seems to anger my mate more, and I noticed his hand's fist as he starts to shake with anger. A loud growl rips from his mouth, and I can't help but wonder what else those lips could. I stop my train of thought and immediately growl back at him. I challenge his dominance with my own rage. We are fire and water. We are hot and cold. My mate and I are two very independent people, with no bone in us made to follow another. I will not submit to him, and neither him to me. He slowly stalks forward, and my breath catches as he reaches out to touch me. Just as his hand meets, my skin sparks erupt all across my body like fireworks. My mate's eyes become pitch black, and he meets my skin with his rough fingertips. I want to moan in pleasure, but soon I find myself being thrown against a wall. Hard. My wolf whines in pain as a gash opens up on my forehead. My body slides down to the floor, and I lean my back against the wall while I process what just happened. I feel fresh blood start to work its way down the side of my face. It hurts, but not enough for me to cry out in pain. I will not give anybody that satisfaction. I lift my watering eyes to my attacker and find him turned away from me. All I can see is his muscled back that isn't hidden well underneath his tight shirt. A conflicted growl reverberates around him. It's confusing, almost as if he is also at war with his wolf. Show some respect, Rouge. You are on my pack's land and I am the Alpha. Your life rests in my hands. Behave, or you might not see the next day, he says, still without facing me. Lock her up in the jail. Maybe a few days of confinement will teach her some manners. He turns to tell Jonathan. Jonathan gaps at my mate and seems to be frozen in the corner for more than a few seconds before hesitantly walking towards me. My wolf howls in betrayal and sorrow at our mate's clear disregard for our connection. To be honest, I expected better. Werewolves are severely protective of their mates the minute they lay eyes on them. Every so often mates will not get along, and they will reject each other, but never in all of my life have a herd of mates locking the other in a pack prison. It hurts my heart that this beautiful beast is ignoring me completely. That he already hates me so much that he hurt me. My mate stalks back up the stairs while I sit frozen against the wall. I barely comprehend Jonathan coming over and slipping silver cuffs over my wrists. I barely notice the burning of my skin as the silver lays on them. All I can think about is him. I just let my mind wander into a different reality. One where my mate runs to me and envelops me in his strong arms and protects me from men like Ren, holding me when I cry and kissing my tears away, gently stroking my rosy cheeks. Instead, the moon goddess matched me with a man absorbed in maintaining power, a man so full of himself that he treats his own mate like a dangerous rouge, a speck of dirt on a wile wall, something to be ashamed of. I am yanked back up the stairs by an irritated Jonathan, although I can't tell who exactly he is irritated with. He tries not to toss my broken body around like a rag doll, but in my weakened state, I can't even walk straight, causing me to stumble up the concrete steps. Of course he said that. Of course. Goddess. Do you know what he will do to you now? It's over, Rouge. He's lost his mind. He groans as we reach the top of the stairs and he pushes me forward. He must have a suspicion that I am his alpha's mate. I won't be the one to tell him, though. The minute I see him again, I'm going to reject him. I will scream it loud and clear, with no regret. I stick out my hands to avoid falling on my face, as I'm once again too weak to support my own body weight. I turn to face him from the ground. Jonathan towers over me with a pale face and tries to gently lift me back to my feet. For a second, I think he pities me, but then his face becomes a blank wall. You just made me look like a fool for keeping you alive, he mutters as I am dragged out of the hospital. Tears form in my eyes as I think of my chances of survival. I don't know if I have the fight left to make it through another 1.5 years of torment. So all you care about is your alpha's opinion? Funny. You are a pathetic beta if you can't even stand up to your alpha. I have dealt with my share of alphas just like yours. They act all ruthless, and their betas fall for the trap. I guess I thought you would be different after you let me live. I thought that maybe I had finally caught a break and maybe, just maybe, I wouldn't have to go through it all again. I start to full-on sob, and who the hell cares? I feel broken after my mate's clear rejection. I can't get the image of him turning his back to me and storming away. Was I not pretty enough? Was I not the perfect female wolf who kept her mouth shut? If that was what he wanted, then I'd sooner kill myself. I would not be one to take orders. I was a warrior for my old pack. I would still be a warrior, if not for people like Ren. People like my mate. I noticed Jonathan look at me with a twinge of sadness, but it soon washes away as we pass wolves from the pack. They stare too long at me. They study me like a slab of marble. They look too closely at all my cracks and blemishes, and only see a blemished being. They judge me by my unruly blonde curls and my tear-streaked face. I am an object of curiosity. To them, I am not a person, only a rouge without a name that is being hauled away by their beta. I continue to struggle in Jonathan's death grip, and I gasp for air as I choke on my own tears. I am dragged down a gravel road until we reach a dark stone building surrounded by guard towers and barbed wire fencing. One and stop fighting. He continues to push me around to the guarded entrance. 2 stone-faced men stand to watch at the entrance, with silver-loaded guns strapped to their chest. Their emotionless eyes follow us as we make our way to them. Alpha Rhysand has ordered the confinement of Rouge Wolf Onalee, Jonathan says with authority. My heart stutters as I hear my mate's name for the first time. His beautiful name. I want to say it out loud and test it out on my tongue. Anything to hear the colorful spectrum of voices one more time. My thoughts are broken by hands, shoving me into the prison and through the gates. I guess they had finally gotten the okay to let us in. I glanced around skeptically at the dark gray concert walls and lack of windows. I was not looking forward to my stay here, to say the least. We continued up the long paved path that led to a set of huge metal double doors. Each of the 2 doors were dark silver and were each as tall as 15 feet, and we reached the doors. Jonathan presses a button off to one side, causing an obnoxious loud buzz. Soon the doors swing open, and we walk through. If death has a smell, that is what it smelled like. Years of suffering. Urine. Blood. Sweat. And shit all compiled into one smell. I stopped myself from wrenching more than a few times, but my ever-so-faithful captor didn't even blink an eye. Jonathan led me through door after door, and hall after hall. We passed cells with living and dead, both blooded and bruised. One werewolf lay in it. Cell shifted, but instead of a bushy tail, there was a blooded stump. I wanted to sob at the horrible sight. Even Ren had never gone as far to cut off any of my limbs. I thought my mate to be a horrible person, but now as I look around and witness the suffering he has caused, I am sure he is a monster. I can't comprehend how one lives with themselves after they caused this much damage. Yes, I am positive that many of these people deserved this fate, but still. It's impossible not to lose yourself when trying to break apart another. That's the scary part. You can shatter yourself just as easily. I have no doubt that that is what has happened to Rhysand. I just wish someone could help him. I soon find myself standing in front of an empty metal door that Jonathan shoves open. We enter a separate wing of the prison. This is much more secluded and private. I'm guessing most of the torture takes place here. The hall extends on until we reach another door, with a ID scanner beside it. Jonathan whips out a card and places it in front of the scanner. A green light flickers, and we are let in. Once again, I am in a state of awe at the amount of effort it seems went into creating a place of such horrors. The room we now stand in is extremely large, with a wooded platform in the middle. 2 long silver chains hang from the ceiling above it. Along the walls, displays of swords. Knives and whips are showed of on racks. In a small glass case, tiny vials of poisons are held. As I take it all in, make sure my face remains expressionless. I study the gray stone walls and lack of windows. I take note of the one door that leads in and out of this hellhole. It requires a ID to get in and out. How convenient. Jonathan leads me up onto the platform and undoes my silver shackles, releasing their burning hold on my wrists. My freedom was short-lived when he took the chains that hung from the ceiling and attached them to my hands. The chains were only long enough to reach my wrists when they were held above my head. Now my hands are useless in protecting my venerable body. My wrists sting, but I took a deep breath and pulled it together. I would remain strong. Don't expect him to go easy on you. No Rouge has ever made it out alive. Jonathan says emotionlessly and turns to leave the room. That's when I shout, Alpha Ren. That's the man who made my life a living hell. I don't care what happens to me, but if you ever run into him, punch his ass and say, Onalee wishes you all the best. I say before he can leave me alone in this torture chamber. Jonathan gives me a fleeting glance before walking out of the room. Suddenly, I feel more alone than I ever have. I don't know how long I stand in the middle of the room chained up. My hands are pulled taut above my head, causing them to ache. My fingers tingle from lack of blood flow. I can feel hunger starting to eat. It's way into my body. It's a parasite I can't get rid of. The last time I ate was the day before I escaped Ren. It was probably 3 days later, and I hadn't had a scrap of food. What I would do to taste a piping hot pizza right now. I find my mind wandering to the time Evie and I made homemade pizzas. It was a Friday night, a few months after our parents had died. Every moment we spent together was one filled with painful memories of our deceased parents. I had missed them greatly, but it was especially hard for Evie. Being so little. To lift up her spirits, I had taken the extra time to purchase grocery items for homemade pizzas. It had been a pain in the ass to hunt down all the ingredients, because all we usually kept in the pantry were cereal, pasta, and sandwich necessities. Let's just say that the sales lady had been my savior, that grocery trip. At 15, I had been clueless to say the least. When the time came for dinner that Friday night, I had gone into Evie's purple room and found her flipping through picture books in her canopy bed. A frown tugged at her tiny pink lips, and all the joy had been sucked out of her. Evie. Sweetheart. I thought we could do something special tonight. I said with as much excitement as I could muster. She looked up at me with a sullen look. She slowly shook her head and pouted, before looking back at her picture book. Please. Miss Evie. You know I can't cook at all. I need help with making pizza. Your favorite might, I remind you, I said teasingly. She lifted her head and looked at me with a hopeful glint in her blue eyes. I smiled at her, and I walked over and picked her up and carried her into the kitchen on my hip. That night, laughter had once again existed in our empty apartment. Flour covered the floor, and Evie had pizza sauce all over her pink shirt. The pizzas probably tasted horrible, but I could have cared less. For the first time in months, Evie had smiled at me like she used to. Now, as I hang in chains, a small, wistful smile tugged at the corners of my dry lips. It was immediately wiped away when the door burst open. My heart stopped as an intoxicating scent of pine and citrus hit my nose. I didn't even have to turn my head to see who was entering. It was the smell of my mate. Well, what do we have here? Slowly, Rhysand struts over in front of me with a sneer on his handsome face. I glare right back at him. I'd prefer to avoid talking to a disgusting being such as yourself. I state coolly. Rhysand grits his teeth and walks over to the wall of torture devices. He stares at them long and hard, making no move to pick any of them up yet. I watch him, silently pleading with the moon goddess that he doesn't pick up the whip. You can imagine my shock at finding out you were my mate. Such a weak, stubborn girl. Sadly, I have no desire for a mate. I think I'd have much more fun with you in a setting like this, Don't you think? He says, as he finally decides on a syringe of wolfsbane. I look at him with no fear. I refuse to treat him as my enemy yet. We are still complete strangers in every sense, and until I am convinced that every bone in his body is evil, I will not treat him as such. It's Rhysand, right? I say with snottiness, trying to get a reaction out of him. He grunts as he walks over to me and slams his fist into my soft stomach. My wolf whimpers in my head, but I refuse to show any indication that I'm in pain. I'll take that as a yes, I say with fake cheerfulness. Suddenly, my demeanor becomes dark and serious as I get ready to say my next words. I, Onalee Barrow, reject you. My words are abruptly stopped as Rhysand's hand shoots out and covers my mouth. I feel sparks erupt across my body as I take in the seething male towering before me. Don't you dare finish that sentence. No one, and I mean no one, will ever reject me of anything. I get to be in charge. He yells into my face like a 4-year-old boy, but all I can think about is the fact that he stopped me from rejecting him. Maybe some small morsel of his wolf actually wants a mate. I know my wolf certainly does, but she hardly ever makes a strong decision in my everyday choices. Rhysand slowly removes his hand from my mouth, and I already find myself unintentionally missing the feel of his skin against mine. What has the moon goddess gotten me into? I can and will most certainly reject you, if I do please to. You are not my alpha, and neither are you deserving of having me as your mate. So why the hell not? I spit out with venom. If my hands weren't chained up and raw with silver burns, I would have punched him in the face with all my power. Trust me. When I was training to be a pack warrior, I sent more than my fair share of men to the infirmary. I feel a small sting in my upper arm, and look down to find Rhysand injecting the wolfsbane into my system. I start to feel my body shut down, and my eyes start to drop, but I fight to keep them open. Every part of my body starts to burn with this intense fire. It makes my blood feel like acid, and I shake from pain. You mean nothing to me, Rouge. By the time I am done with you, you won't be more than a heap of bones and blood, he says as he walks over to a metal trash bin and throws the now empty syringe away. And if you tell anyone that we are mates, I will have your head separated from your puny body. Iskaulohim. As if I had anyone to tell, and if I did, I wouldn't want them to know that this obnoxious oaf was my mate. I bite my tongue, as another wave of agony works its way through my body. I lean my head forward and look at the ground as beads of sweat form on my brow. Rhysand watches me the whole time, with a frown on his horribly perfect face. I see him look at me with nothing close to pleasure but more of a business-like mode. It's as if I'm just another chore on his list to complete. My wolf cringes at the thought. I can tell she is outraged that our mate of all people would treat us so poorly. I almost agree with her. As my body becomes weaker and weaker, I make out the blurry form of my mate picking up what I can only assume is a knife. Thank all things holy he didn't go for the whip first. His figure walks back to me, but in my weakened state, my head starts to spin, and I see double. I groan as I start to feel unconsciousness pull me into its abyss. I fight it. If my mate insists on hurting me, I'm going to stare him in the eyes and make him and his wolf feel as guilty as possible. Don't scream too loudly, Princess. I don't need to ruin my knives and my ears. he says as he slips the silver knife under the skin of my leg with a flash. I gasp as I feel my skin part around the blade of the knife, and blood starts to gush out. Small droplets slide off of my skin and fall in little thuds to the wooden platform beneath. Blood stains my hospital gown that hangs loosely on my thin frame. I hope he doesn't demand I take it off. Goddess knows what I would do if he saw me naked and actually touched me. Even if it was only to torture me. You might want to step up your game. Otherwise, I might start thinking you're a weak alpha as well. I say, in between sharp breaths. I close my eyes shut and fight back the tears of pain. I refuse to cry anymore than I already have in this lifetime. Especially in front of him. My words only anger Rhysand. More so he does the same to my other leg. It hurts so effing bad, but I bite my cheek. I'm not sure if it feels worse because of the silver knife or the fact that it's my damn mate hurting me. Either way, I'm in a state of utter pain so close to passing out from the wolf's bane. Just when I don't think I'll make it one more moment. Rhysand withdraws the knife from my flesh. I groan in exhaustion as well as thankfulness. I'll see you tomorrow, Onalee, he says as he walks away and out the door swiftly. I moan as my body is racked with angry sobs. Everything hurts so much. My wolf can barely control her temper after what our mate just did to us. She wants blood and suffering, because no one should treat us like that. I agree with her. I don't like this anymore then, she does. My head drops down until my chin rests on my bony chest. I sigh in frustration. When will this nightmare ever end? I was left alone over the night. Even with the lack of windows, I knew that at least it had been a full 12 hours since Rhysand's visit. I attempted to sleep, if you can even call it that. It had been impossible to find a comfortable position with my arms numb and chained above my head. Every time I dozed off, I felt like someone was watching me. After searching every crack and crevice, I spotted a surveillance camera hidden in the corner of the wall near the ceiling.